If you have ever wondered how to create 3D printable 2D wall art, then this is the video for you. I will take you through a step-by-step guide, and all you'll need is Fusion 360 and a 3D printer capable of color printing. So enough delays, let's get straight into the tutorial. Hello everyone, it's good to be back and doing another tutorial. This time I want to focus on how to create 3D printable 2D wall art. I'm sure there's a few techniques on how to do this, but this is how I personally do it, and I think it's a very simple way of doing it. So let's get into it. The first thing you want to have a look at when you're picking some sort of art to turn into wall art or 3D printable art is it needs to be converted into an SVG file. The best files for this are typically vector art, so it's got a clear, crisp line, something like this Mickey Mouse. And since Mickey Mouse is now public domain and it's a bit of a hot topic today, I thought it would be the perfect wall art piece to create. So just doing a quick Google search, this is something I came across. It really lends itself to this style of 3D printing and this style of vector art. What I mean is you want some nice crisp detail, so when you're searching for images, definitely search for anything that's either medium or high resolution. If you start getting too small, it's going to lose a lot of quality, so something high quality is going to get you the best results. You want some clean lines. You don't want anything too thin or too detailed, because the more detail, it's just going to complicate things when you try and convert it to an SVG. So this is kind of like the perfect example. Nice, blocky, simple shapes, and it's going to be really easy to 3D print because I could probably just use black, white, and maybe some red for the tongue. So it's a really simple 3D print as well. Currently, this is just a PNG file or maybe a JPEG. That's all you need to begin with, but we first need to convert it into a vector art, which can be saved as a SVG file. Currently, the best way of doing this, I find, is a site called vectorize.ai. It's in a beta version, and as you can see, it is free while it is in the beta. So I'm not sure when this is going to come out of beta and potentially require a paid subscription or credits or something, but at the moment it's free. I recommend you use this, and it does a really good job. Later on, if this ever changes, I'll show you how to use Inkscape, or I might follow up with a video on how to use Inkscape. At least that way it's free and it's always going to be free, but this is a much easier way of doing it. So you go to this site, vectorize.ai. All I need to do is drag and drop. It'll upload, it'll process, and on the left is our original JPEG. On the right is the result that we should get. We can just go up to download. All these settings here at the moment, you shouldn't need a change. You might want to pause the video and just copy what I've got. But the main thing we need is an SVG, because with an SVG, we can import that directly into Fusion 360 and we'll be able to create our 3D model. So that's the main requirement. So we'll just go to download and that will download our SVG. So that's now converted and we can next open Fusion. So the next step, you're going to need Fusion 360. That's what I'm going to be using in this tutorial. Open that and we'll move into the 3D modeling part. Okay, so now you should have Fusion 360 open, whether it's a paid version or a free version. You can get away with using a free version. You may just have some saving restrictions on how many projects you can have active. I think it's 10 at a time. Apart from that, you'll have a full suite of features. And honestly, what we're doing in Fusion 360 is super basic, so you won't even need that much apart from importing and extruding. So that's it really. So if you don't know how to use Fusion 360, this isn't a full tutorial on teaching you how to use it, but it's just really simple and you won't need to know much anyway. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Once you have Fusion 360 open, first thing we need to do is just go up here and create a sketch and then click on our ground plane. The next thing I like to do is just create a box which will act as our border of our print plate and give us an idea of scale. We can do this by going up to the 2-point rectangle, and in the palette we want to set that to center rectangle. Click on our center point, drag it out. Doesn't matter for the size right now. So that's our rectangle. We want to dimension this, so D on the keyboard for dimension. We can click on one of the lines. And this is, I'm working in millimeters, so the build plate for the printer I have is Bambu X1C. That's 256 by 256 millimeters. In my case, I'm not going to print it that big. I think I'll just make a small little print so it's quick and easy. Let's just go 150 millimeter. And I want to square that off, so I can click this line, holding down shift and clicking this line, and then we're going to go to the equal constraint. So that's just going to make both lines the same dimension. and basically set it as a square. So this is going to be our 150mm kind of border zone that we want to work in. The reason I do that is because of the next step. So I may set this as its own sketch, so I can finish sketch, and now I'm going to go create a sketch again, set it on the same plane so we can see our border that we can work within. We want to now insert our SVG. So we go to insert SVG, insert from my computer, and then search for the file that we've created. I've got a couple here because I've been working on this. So I'll select my Mickey Mouse, insert. And here is what I mean. Usually it will come in really large scaled and not quite in the right position. So our border box will sort of help us position this and scale it right. Before you click OK or anything, you'll see this little icon. It has a few different features. If we click on this semi or quadrant circle, that's going to rescale it for us so we can click and drag down. And if we click on the square, that will help us move it into a position. So we can kind of position it to where we want. We still want it a bit bigger, so we can drag that out, go larger. And we kind of want it to fit in those edges of our box. So we can pretty much put it there, drag it out just a little bit more because I want to fill out that 150 as much as I can. And then I just want to center it as much as I can as well. So I'm just running my eyes around the outside and trying to keep everything equal. So it's a little bigger on this side than it is on the other side. I'm going to drag it over just a tiny bit. And I think that's about centered and it's about the right scale. The reason why I want to do this now is because if I hit OK, it kind of locks that in position and scale, and it's really hard to change that. The best way of doing it is probably deleting the sketch and then importing the SVG again and just giving it another try. Otherwise, we're good. I want to hide my original sketch for the border. So if I click on this arrow, it will drop it down. I want to hide the visibility of that border sketch. And now we're just looking at our main sketch. And I don't need this outside, which is just part of the original image. So I can drag over, highlight those lines and just hit delete on the keyboard to remove those lines. And therefore we should have a nice clear sketch ready to extrude. So we can finish sketch and the next step is extruding. When I make the 2D wall art, I like to make it 1mm thick for the base, and usually I'll just do a solid color like a black. And then on top of that, I'll do about a 0.4 layer height of colored geometry. That way, because you're not looking at the back of the wall art, you may as well just have a solid color. It's going to save on filament and time printing, and it kind of gives it a nice base to put everything on top of with your color. 0.4 for the color, because I find that anything less, you'll start to get a bit of translucency, which is something you may want to play around with, but outside the scope of this tutorial. The main point being is 0.4 seems to give it just enough of a thickness to get that color to come through. You could go to 0.5 or 0.6 as well, but I find 0.4 is good because at a 0.2 layer height, that's just 2 layers of color, and it can do that pretty quickly. So the next part is to first, I'm going to set that base, and then I'm going to extrude the color from the other side. The reason why I'm doing this is because I use a textured plate, and I like that textured finish on the bottom. So the color needs to be on the bottom side of the plate, picks up on that textured finish. And when I put that on a wall, it gives it a nice finish and it sort of hides any imperfections. That way the model can just be imported straight into the slicer. You don't have to flip things around or anything. So I want that color to be on the bottom and the base to be on the back, if that makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense as we do it. So the first thing we need to do is extrude the backing for our wall art. We use this, the extrude feature, so E for extrude on the keyboard, and we're just going to drag over our entire sketch because we want the whole thing to be extruded. And we want that to be 1mm in the up direction. When you do that, you'll notice our sketch is now gone and we need to bring it back. So if you haven't still got this open, you click on your sketches, we unhide our sketch 2, which is our Mickey Mouse face, and you'll see the sketch again. It's actually on the bottom side because we've extruded the base up. So what we want to do now, we're now looking at the bottom of the model here, and you can tell because in the top view cube, it gives you an idea of the orientation of the model itself. So here we're looking kind of underneath, and we want to start extruding things. We can actually just look directly at the bottom, and that can help a bit as well. And to make things a little easier on the mind, we can rotate this here. So again, using Eve to extrude, we're going to start extruding at 0.4 height. The main thing here is you can't just go and extrude the whole thing because it's going to try and merge everything, and we need each extrusion to be a separate object. That way we can color it easy in Bambu Studio by just assigning colors to different parts of the model. So we can work our way through, we can pick this main one. We don't want to do the next one because if we extrude that together, it will join it. So we can go to kind of like the next one in. So we'll go to that one and we can pick the nose. Always do that. It's control to drag, and we'll need the mouth. Okay, that's the main things we can pick at the moment. And we also want to set this to new body. It's very important. We don't want to join it to the backing. We want this extrusion to be all new parts. If it was black parts, which technically this is, these are all black, which I've selected, but I'm not going to get into the real advanced topic yet. I'm just going to stick to all being new extruded parts. So we all got new body selected. We need to give it a height as well, so that needs to be -0.4. The reason why we're doing negative is to extrude underneath it instead of upwards, which was the backing. It's now going down, so it's -0.4. And when you do that, you may also notice the operation has changed, so you need to make sure you change that to new body. If for some reason you have extruded it and the extrusion is joined, you'll notice because when you go to your bodies, you don't have individual parts, you'll have just one main piece. You can just right click on the feature, edit feature, and you could probably just change it over to new body. All right, we just need to extrude these next pieces. So again, making sure the body's looked at, extrude. You kind of need to move it around to make sure you pick the right part. So it's going to be this one, this one, this one. Did we pick the tongue before? Looks like we may have. Can be a little tricky what you're looking at. Okay, so we picked the mouth, so we do need that one. And again, -0.4. When you go a negative, it's probably going to try and cut into something because it's detecting that, so we want new body. And okay. All right, now we can hide our sketch and we can look at this and make sure that all our pieces are extruded, which it looks like I have picked all of them correctly. If for some reason you can't see it properly, it's probably because of your visual style. You may be on the default, which is, I believe, shaded. So you may be looking at something like this and you can kind of make out the lines, but not really. So go down to the bottom here, display settings, and then visual style. And then you want to go to shaded with visible edges only, or control 6. That way you can see all the lines and it'll just be easier to kind of make out. Finally, if you want to kind of visualize what it's going to look like when you color it, we can set appearances. So if we push A on the keyboard for appearance, you'll get the appearance tab come up. And in our library, we can just search for a black plastic without hitting enter, because that will sort of get rid of the window. These are all free. You might see a download button here. You need to download it first in some cases. Otherwise, if you already have it, you can just click on it, drag and drop onto your material. I also need that for the back material, so I can drag and drop them there. You can always use your image as a reference, so we need to add the black to the nose and the mouth. Any materials you use will come up in here. So we go to there and to there. We also need a white. I think there is a white plastic by default. Let's have a look. White plastic. Yep. Matte white is fine. So his skin, I suppose, is what you're going to call a mouse's skin. We also need to assign black to the eyes as well. So we need to assign it to that. Now this coloring won't affect the 3D print. It's not going to translate through to it when we import it into Bambu Studio, but it's just to kind of give you an idea, and in case you want to do some rendering as well. And we also need to assign white to the eyes. And I'm going to put a red on the tongue just to have a look. Now there might be a red plastic, I'm not too sure. Looks like there is, and like I said, I haven't downloaded this one, so I can click on it. It'll download, it won't take long, they're very small, so it's already done. And we're just going to drag and drop that onto the tongue. So as you can see, very clear, very simple design, and we can now bring that into Bambu Studio. The first thing we should do though, of course, is save our work. So Fusion 360 uses a cloud-based save system. So all we need to do is Control S to save. We can give it a name. We'll say Mickey Wall Art, so any name you want, of course, and that's saved into the cloud. To actually move our file into Bambu Studio, the next stage would be to go to File and then Export, and we want our file type to be a 3MF file, and then we can export. You'd click on the 3 dots to save it to a location and then export. But I find there's actually a better way. What you can do is go to File and then 3D Print, and this is going to send it directly into it's going to export it as a 3MF and then send it directly into Bambu Studio. The way you do that is by setting it to custom print utility, and then you'd go in and find the exe file location for Bambu Studio. So all you need to do from here is go 3MF, high refinement. It will need some selection, so you can just click on the top level item and go OK. And this will send it over. As you can see, Bambu Studio is now opening, and it's just going to import it directly in there for us. So it's a really quick way of just going straight into Bambu Studio. The main thing you'll notice is because this is a multi-part file, it's going to come up with this saying multi-parts detected. Do you want to keep it as a single object or multiple objects? And you should say yes, because we want those individual pieces so that we can color them easier. So we'll go yes. We should be able to now see our item. It's looking correct because everything that we want printed in color is on the bottom, and then on the back is the back plate. In my case, because I'm using, I want it this way because I have the textured plate on the bottom and I want to transfer that surface to the colored side. Now I do need to pause for a sec because I don't have the correct colors loaded. I need to put in a red. This is a gradient, but I want to put a red in there. So I'm going to pause and then put the red filament in and come back and just update on that. Okay, next step is going to be coloring the parts of our model. In this case, I'm just going to do a black, a white, and a red for the tongue. So I only need 3 colors. Here you can see I actually have 8 colors loaded. That's because I've got 2 AMS units on my Bambu Labs printer. I think if you're going to be doing 2D wall art or 2D or color 3D printing, probably good to have at least 2 AMS units. That's going to give you 8 colors total. Gives you a lot more variety. You can actually load up to 4 AMS for 16 colors, which is really cool. In my case, I just have 2, and I find that's more than enough for what I usually do. So because we have loaded our objects or our model as individual objects, when you go over to objects, you'll see all our individual pieces. And it's not really clear on what these parts are. If you name them in Fusion first before exporting, it will come through with the names. So that may help if you have like a lot of parts or very specific parts. You can quickly name them. Anyway, what we can start doing is assigning colors. Up here, when you have your AMS, I have, like I was saying, 8. So I have numbered 1 through to 8, which is what Bambu automatically does in the slicer. But there's a really cool way, instead of clicking on each part, and it's really annoying because you have to kind of click on it multiple times for it to come up with the colors, and then you'd normally assign and then you have to click off. So that's a really annoying way. But you'll notice it here with your filaments, they have all these numbers assigned to them. You can actually just hit the number that corresponds to the filament on your keyboard and it will assign it to that part. So what I mean is if we pick this part here, which I'm not sure what it is, but let's just assign a color, which my black is 2. So if I just hit 2 and it's going to assign the color, and it looks like that was correct. It looks like it's picked the baseboard. So that's perfect. You can also click multiple pieces. So we could go this one, and this one, hit 2 and assign black to all of them. So that's a really quick, easy way to assign colors. So let's go through and pick the rest. So we know that is our eye is white. So we're going to go white for that. What else do we need? Our tongue, which is red, which I think is 6 on here. And we're just missing the nose, so that, and you can see the outline when you pick parts. So we're just trying to find, you can just sort of assign colors and see what it is. What we're looking for is that nose. There it is. So we can assign the nose color, and that's it. That's all we need. So I've assigned all my colors, my black, whites, and red, and that's all I'm going to do for this print. It's come through at the correct scale because we use that border of 150 mils, so we know this is about the right size. and it's going to match whatever we export in Fusion is going to match what we set it as, which was the units was millimeters. So it's going to be close to that 150 mil border we set. As for settings when I'm printing, 0.2 I believe is going to be fine because we're not looking for quality in height. We're looking for quality at a single layer, which is going to be that most visible layer, which is why I use that textured plate, because it really hides any imperfections. If you want to speed things up, you could go to 0.24 or 0.3. Our infill and such as things like strength, we could go up to 3 wall loops just to strengthen things a little bit, but again, 2 could be fine as well. I think 3 is good because it's, you want to put it up on a wall, so 3 should be fine. All our infills, it's such a small thin part, we're looking at only 1.4 mil thickness. So the infill doesn't really matter that much. We could even bump that down to 10. It's not required. It's not a structural part. It's just being slapped on a wall. So 10% is more than fine. And really there's nothing much else apart from that. Oh, there is one setting actually. Back in quality, if you go down to the wall generator, by default it should be classic. We want to set that to Arachne. What Arachne does, if there's any really thin lines, when you normally slice in classic mode, if it's really thin to the point where it's too thin to print, it'll just skip that geometry. So when you have small, detailed, intricate prints, maybe text or really fine graphics, and it's trying to print the line and it's just too thin because it's not large enough, it'll probably just skip it. So when we slice plate and you get a preview, you'll probably find a lot of it's missing. What Arachne does is it makes sure that anything that is not going to print normally will have a minimum thickness geometry. So that way it may not give you the best quality, but it's really helpful for things like small text. If you're especially using something like a smaller nozzle, like I've got a 0.4 nozzle, if I was using a 0.2 in Arachne mode, you could have some really fine details and making sure that all that little thin lines are printed through properly. So Arachne is really good for that. And you can always just have a look at the description when you hover over the mouse. So our next thing is simply go to slice plate, because there's really no advanced printing settings here. It's really just default stuff, and we can slice plate. It's really going to depend on the size that we're printing. So here we're probably covering about maybe 40% of the plate, and it's taking about 41 minutes. So that's pretty good. If there was more colors or if it was larger, you may see, well, you definitely see that time increase. Things this big, I think, print off pretty quick, and especially because of the thinness of it. They're thin enough to have or print quickly, but still have some structural rigidity to it, so stick on the wall nicely. And that's pretty much it. So the next thing, we'll send this off to the printer, come back in an hour, and it's going to be done. So let's print this off, and I'll just share my final thoughts. So an hour later, and the print is complete. All we need to do is pop this off the plate and take a look, and we can see it looks really good. Looking up close, you can really see that transfer from the textured plate. I think it goes a long way in hiding any of the imperfections. So now it's your turn. Get out there and create some art of your own. If you have found value in this tutorial, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thanks for watching.